Have you ever felt lost, hopeless, and alone? I have, sometimes more often than I'd like to even admit to myself. We have all had times when we have felt abandoned. Try to bring those feelings to the surface of your heart. For some of us, they may not live very far below the surface. Usually feelings of desperate aloneness come with loss. Loss of a love or a loved one, loss of a support community, a job, or even a sense of loss about the meaning in your life. Sometimes we know that sense of abandonment when we believe no one considers us to be essential, or when we think we don't matter. In the first reading today, God made a promise, a covenant. God set a bow in the clouds to sign that the covenant of faithfulness to his people would not be broken. We all know the story of the ark. After the flood, God promised Noah he would not destroy the earth again. A rainbow sealed that promise. We also know that rainbows don't just happen. Rainbows happen when the sun shines through the rain. God's promise was not that our lives would always be filled with sun. God did not promise Moses or us that life would be filled only with joy and love and understanding. In fact, he promised us just the opposite. He promised tears and sadness. God told us through a rainbow, our lives would be filled with irrepressible joy and debilitating heartbreak. God told us by his bow in the clouds that we cannot have one without the other. It takes both to make a rainbow. It takes both to know the fullness of his promise. It takes both to experience the fullness of God's love. A rainbow sealed God's promise to Noah. God would never destroy the earth again. God promises he will not abandon us or leave us orphaned. He will be with us forever and for always. Through Moses, God sealed his promise with a rainbow in the clouds. The gospel tells us that Jesus went out into the desert where he was tempted by Satan and he was ministered to by angels. There is such hope in that for us. Jesus, the very Son of God, one just like us, went out into the desert where he knew both the draw of temptation and the comfort of God's embrace. Jesus experienced the lure of temptation, a lack of understanding, and a deep-seated loneliness. But the gospel reading also says Jesus was ministered to by angels. He knew hope. He knew security. He knew God's love in the desert. In God's own way, he gave Jesus his own rainbow in the desert. Jesus knew temptation, pain, but he also knew comfort. And in the end, Jesus saw the promise of God. Jesus knew the fidelity of God. In the desert, Jesus found the mission his Father had given him. Jesus went out into that desert to find what God was calling him to, what he was called to be. And he came to greater union with his Father. This Lent, we all go out into the desert, if we dare. In the desert of our souls, we will find temptation. We will find our failings, our heartaches, and our weaknesses. That's the frightening part. But if we dare, we will also know the love and the comfort of God. He will allow us to feel the ministering of His angels. The angels of God will calm our fear, heal our brokenness, and dry the tears of loneliness that sometimes own us. God will plant an eternal rainbow in our hearts. Like Jesus, we can know God's promise that He will be with us always, even to the end of time. When we leave the desert of Lent, if we allow ourselves to, we will see God's path more clearly. As we place our feet on His way, we will be comforted by the promise that we will never be alone on our journey. Every now and then, God will place a rainbow in the clouds, His rainbow. It will remind us of His fidelity to us on our journey. May God bless us throughout this Lent.